Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. Welcome to week 16 here on DraftKings. I can't believe we progressed all the way through the season to this point already. It's flown by. But it's Christmas season, as you can tell by the brand new studio that we have. All the interns have decorated, everything's gotten done to help prepare me and you for the NFL DFS on Christmas week. Here we are. We're going to talk about a first look on the main slate, which comes on Saturday. That's where our listener league is going to be, by the way. It fills on Saturday. So make sure that you get there early. And then we will have another video for the Christmas slate, the 3-game slate on Sunday, which will be out on Wednesday. That first look will be out on Wednesday. So everything changes with the schedule. So thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate you. I wish you the happiest of holidays. Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, whatever it is that you celebrate. And let's go.
He's a legend.
Make sure that you enter the Week 16 Smiz Gang Listener League. You can go to smizzle.tv/links to get there. It does not exist in the DraftKings lobby. You got to go through the link. It's the only way to get there because it's the best tournament on DraftKings. So they can't publish it in the lobby. Otherwise, everybody would just join it. It wouldn't be for our listeners. It would just be for anybody who shows up on DraftKings. It is the best tournament because it is $30,000 in the prize pool. Absolutely no rake. $10 to enter, 3 max. Go to smizzle.tv/links. And this kicks off on Saturday morning. So you can't wait until Saturday to get in. It kicks off Saturday morning. Make sure that you jump in there because it will probably fill somewhere around Friday night or early Saturday morning. So make sure you get in there. And I will shout out the winners on the Al Smizzle Fantasy Football channel on Monday with the recap video. Speaking of which, go check out the Al Smizzle Fantasy Football channel. The Week 15 recap video is already posted, as you can see right here, like right next to me. It goes over everything that happened the last week of action, as well as the Listener League winner. We'll shout them out. I had all the live finals last week, so I go over everything that happened in New Orleans, how I did in the main tournament and in the Rainmakers tournament, as well as everything else. So definitely go follow Al Smizzle Fantasy Football because we will have tons of videos in the offseason as well. Let's take a look at this slate. It is a shorter slate, as you can see. It's only 10 games because, you know, they have 3 island games and there's a 3-game slate on Christmas. I don't really like the shorter slates. I don't. I like a fuller slate. I like to be able to get different in tournaments. And I feel that it's going to be hard this week to get different in tournaments because of how ugly this slate is. And sometimes I say that and I don't really mean it. Sometimes I really do mean it. In this case, I really do. And the reason is there's massive weather in a couple of spots, and not like, you know, faux massive weather like we saw for 3.5 quarters in Buffalo last week, but like, and then other games where there's just really low totals. We have, let's see, Falcons Ravens has a total of 37.5. That's ridiculously low. Panthers Lions, solid game, 43.5 there. Detroit favored by 2.5. They're playing amazing right now. Buffalo and Chicago. Bills favored by 9, total of 40.5. Cleveland against New Orleans, 31. Total is 31 in this game. Browns favored by 3. Ugly weather expected in that situation. Just horrible. Build domes, please. Can we build domes? KC and Seattle, 48 total. Chiefs by 9.5, as expected every time that they play any team that's not great defensively. They're going to be a touchdown or more favorite at this point in the year. Minnesota and the Giants, 47.5. Another solid game, -3. For the Vikings. New England against Cincinnati, 41 in this one. Texans, Houston, 37 total. Commanders, 49ers, 39. They're expecting 39 points in this one. Philly, Dallas, Eagles probably going to be without their quarterback, Jalen Hurts. So, like, we don't know yet. Monitor this as the situation goes on. There's no sense for them to play him. There really is not. They can play Minshew magic. Now, look at the discount here. Like a 3,500 discount to go from Hurts to Minshew. They'll have to employ a different strategy. You could sit Hurts for a week or two. You're already in the playoffs. You're more than likely to have the bye week for that first week. Allow him to get healthy because you have the best chance to win the Super Bowl with him under center. So your MVP candidate has to be allowed to get healthy. So everybody expecting Minshew magic to start this game. And I think that he is very viable for this week, but I did not build the lineup around him. Let's take a look at those quarterbacks. Obviously, Josh Allen at 8,500. Massive game last week in what turned into a blizzard, was not supposed to be a blizzard, threw for 4 touchdowns. We saw the Slate winning 39-point type game out of him that we hadn't seen for like a while since like this stretch at the beginning of the season when he got over 35 DraftKings points in week 5 and 33, 32, 30. 30 is really the magic number, something that he's really only done twice since week 8, as you can see, since their bye week. Also, something to note, the Bills we've hit on this a couple of weeks ago. Since their bye week in week 7, the Bills have not been good against the run. So David Montgomery is kind of a sneaky play on an underdog here, though at home. A very good runner in his own right. They're very bad at tackling, and they're playing against a runner who has been like they were allowing the least amount of yards after first contact, the Bears, pre-bye week. Post-bye week, they've suffered more injuries on defense, specifically that defensive line. And since that point, they've allowed the most yards in the league after first contact. And now they're playing against David Montgomery, a running back who gets a lot of yards after first contact. Something to watch as the week goes on, and he's a cheap option. Patrick Mahomes, he's great. I'd rather stack up players at wide receiver, at running back this week, at least the way that it looks. It's always viable to put a quarterback who has 30 plus fantasy point upside on the field, especially when a lot of their targets are going to just a couple of guys. If we isolate to the Chiefs here for just a second, and you look at last week's game, we've said this, how many times have you heard me say it on this channel? Just because the Chiefs are massive favorites, as they were against the Texans, even if it's a good matchup for running backs, does not mean that you have to shy away from the pass catching options in there on that team. 10 catches on 10 targets, 88 yards, no touchdown. So like no bonus here, no touchdown here for Juju last week. Did lose a fumble. 17.8 points for one pass catcher. Travis Kelce, 10 of 10 for 105, 23 points. You could have stacked him with McKinnon, considering how many targets McKinnon has been getting in the passing game the last couple of weeks. Definitely at or above 15% of the market share of targets the last 2 weeks. 34 points last week, 35 points against Denver in week 14. Did fit the running back model, but does correlate very well with Patrick Mahomes. So don't shy away from quarterback doubles just because they have a massive favorite in a spot. One, the opposing team can push them, or B, maybe if they get into a blowout situation where they're up 30 or 40 points, how did they score all those points? A lot of those are going to come through efficiency. A lot of that efficiency is going to come through the air. Jalen Hurts, we mentioned, is out. Justin Fields is fine if you want to go with a skinny stack or something that gets you away from things. Or just a way to get you somewhere. You know, if you wanted to say I'm going to play Justin Fields and a couple of players from the Bills as a secondary stack without having to match him with somebody to stack, because while I do believe that if he has a tournament winning day at quarterback, it used to be a situation where you could not stack him. You didn't have to because he's not throwing it that much. He wasn't completing that many passes, even though he was not being inefficient, just wasn't completing very many passes. Now he's reached a point where if you're paying up, you're paying this massive premium because of the rushing ceiling that he brings to the table. And if he doesn't have one of those ceiling games, 100 yards, touchdown, multiple touchdowns, still ran for 95 on 15 attempts last week, threw 2 touchdowns, but only 23 points. So it's tough to correlate him. If he has a 23-point day, you're not winning a tournament anyway. If he does have that 40-point day, usually you can correlate it with somebody else, but there's not much 100-yard upside. It has to come through touchdowns. So a higher variance quarterback who definitely has that touchdown or tournament-winning upside. Lamar Jackson probably not going to play in this one. They're hopeful he'll be able to practice this week. We'll see as that goes. Joe Burrow up against New England. New England has been tougher against the run, but they've also given up some points against the run the last couple of weeks. Tougher against the run on the season, one of the top DVOA rushing defenses. They've been league average against the pass, and we know that as much as Cincinnati wants to establish it, they run most of their snaps out of shotgun and are so super talented on the outside. And Joe Burrow's so good at the footballing that you can go with him. I think that we're paying down this week. Whether it's starting with Dak Prescott against Philly, very tough defensive matchup, Cousins against the Giants, I think that I'm coming down into this range. I'm probably not going to be playing Jared Goff outside. Just, you know, he needs perfect conditions for him to really, really go off. He saved his day with that last second Brock 51-yard touchdown. Subtract 51 yards, he had 200 yards and no touchdown on that final minute Brock scamper for 51. Like, so this is another very pedestrian day in an outside game. Faces another outside game here against Carolina. I'd probably rather go with the running backs in that situation. Brock Purdy's interesting at 5,500, but Geno Smith's going to be our guy in this spot. We've seen multiple games with him getting over 20 points, 24, 25 points. We've seen him top 30 against Detroit in a game that had like 93 real life points. We have touchdown upside here. and they square off against Kansas City, a game where they project to be from behind. Anytime teams play from a touchdown or more behind, they drop back on 70% of their passing, 70% to pass on their snaps. So assuming that they are playing in negative game scripts on the road in Kansas City, we can project a lot of passing options here. Now, where are we going to stack this game? There's a lot of options on Kansas City. Not going to go with Kelsey at 8,000 because you can certainly afford him, but I've got a different secondary stack that I wanted to attack through that I think is going to be very solid and have a lot of volume to push you up in tournaments. Specifically, the limited entry small field tournaments that I have been specializing in this season. 100-man, 200-man, 50-man. You can do that at every price pool or at every price point, whether you're playing for $1 or whether you're playing for $5,000 for an entry fee on a tournament. People have seen, well, you won that tournament, but it was only like 100 people in it. I could have scored 180 points and won a tournament, but I didn't because I entered a 12,000 person tournament. Right. I've said since before the season, go back and watch the shorts that I made. Don't do this. Go to the How to Win on DraftKings playlist. Don't do this or start doing this on DraftKings and you'll win more. Focus on limited entry, smaller field tournaments in your price pool. They have the hundos on DraftKings where the 100-man tournament that you can enter, $1, $5, $10, and you're playing against 99 opponents, and this strategy will work, and the scores to win are not going to be 250. They're going to be like 175 to 210, somewhere in that range. So if you have that good week, you can. I think Noah Fant is going to be another week for him to be pretty solid. And the reason that I think that is we're not going to have Tyler Lockett in this game. And that reduces a lot of the target market share. 9 targets in week 15, 9 in week 14, 12 in week 13. We have a situation now where Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf have been soaking up like 45 to 55% of Geno Smith's targets. Lockett is still reasonably priced at 7,100. I hate how they've massacred my beautiful boy, turning him from an 18-yard per catch guy into an 11-yard per catch guy, but it's turned him from that boomer bust play where he's going to win you a tournament or he's going to have 8 points. He has a much higher floor now and still has the ability to break off chunk yardage. They're just throwing him so many more hooks and slants and sit down routes because Geno can't challenge down the field as well as old Russ could challenge down the field. He is still the guy that I wanted to go with in this situation. If you want to go with Goodwin at 4,300, he's viable as well. But give me Noah Fant at 3,400 in this spot. Solid enough at tight end at a very unspectacular position. 14 points in 2 of the last 3 games. Plug him in that spot. And now I get to pick a chief. And where we're going to focus is at running back with Jerick McKinnon. Played over 60% of the snaps for the first time this season. 17 targets in each total in the last 2 games. Has seen his role expand. And my mistake in the live final last week was that I didn't play Jerick McKinnon and a more expensive defense. I played Pacheco because I thought that he had the safer floor considering, Jerick McKinnon, all things considered, has a better floor because of his bigger involvement in the passing game. The problem was with MVS coming back and Tony being activated, my estimation was that Jerick McKinnon was going to see a decrease in snaps and see a decrease in use inside the red zone. That did not materialize. Yes, MVS caught a touchdown. Congratulations for him. So much cardio this year. Finally ended up on the receiving end of a touchdown after like such a drought of him not getting into the painted area. But Jerick McKinnon has been a very real thing for this offense. Now, yes, the long touchdowns are not going to sustain. We've said this before, and everybody, there's always somebody that wants to fight me on this. Deebo Samuel, an amazing player, but the long rushing touchdowns were not going to sustain with him in 2022 versus 2021. Same thing can be said, although it's such a smaller sample size, 26-yard rushing touchdown last week at the end of the game. He had a 56-yard touchdown the week before, unlike that broken play where Mahomes just kind of went and threw the ball and it turned into a 56-yard touchdown. But the volume has been extremely encouraging for a sub 6K price point to be able to get somebody that's this included in the Chiefs' overall game plan, as well as when they get inside the 20-yard line. Yes, when they get inside the 3, Pacheco has been very active with inside, goal to go carries. But in the red zone, Jerick McKinnon is on the field, extremely active, and has always been an electric player with the ball in his hands. So let me get McKinnon up against this Seattle defense. There's my double stack and bring back, and we'll move on to running back to pick our other guy. Now, you know who it is because he's on the cover, right? It's going to be Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is essentially the majority owner of the Houston Texans. In the last 5 games he has played against them, he has averaged over 199 yards rushing and scored 47 touchdowns in just 5 games. Don't fact check me, but you know that I'm close, right? Now, in all other games, he averaged like 18, 19 fantasy points, which is really, really good. Even against that Chargers team last week, 104, 5 yards a carry. Why he did not get his 30 opportunities against them, I'll never know. That game is still frustrating me 2 days later. Did get 4 targets, 5 targets against Jacksonville. A fully fledged card-carrying member of the 5-box running back crew at this point of his playing career. I think that we can expect over 20 DraftKings points from him. I think his floor has to be, assuming starting and finishing the game without an injury, 20 points have to be incoming. 100-yard bonus has to be incoming, averaging 93 yards per game, but that comes in games where they got beat and he got scripted out against Philly, against teams like Cincinnati, who are tough against the run, but against teams that aren't. The Chargers, 104. Jacksonville, 121. Kansas City, 115. Oh, look, the Houston Texans, 32 for 219, 2 touchdowns. If I want to get contrarian, I can pay up 3 more to go get to like Christian McCaffrey. But I don't. You can eat some chalk at some point in a lineup and be just fine. There are other running backs that we can consider as we look down the list. We will get into the top running backs on DraftKings on the running back video, which will be coming out later today. So definitely look for that and check that out. Dalvin Cook against the Giants, 5 boxes. Ramondre Stevenson, the ankle injury that he came back from last week, another 28-point fantasy day. He's just a monster, and he did it without massive usage in the passing game. Alvin Kamara got all the usage we wanted last week, but didn't really pull it off. If you wanted to get completely contrarian, you can go with Ken Walker III. I'm probably not going to be doing that. J.K. Dobbins, 2 straight games, over 100 yards, gets Atlanta, who we've been streaming running backs against constantly. If you wanted to get different, I guess you could go with Isaiah Pacheco, who's had very solid volume, but not very much in the target column. He is very touchdown dependent. He did not score one last week. And it's a shorter slate, so you don't have to get too different in these spots. Miles Sanders against Dallas, if you wanted to get silly. I already talked to you about Dave Montgomery, who is a very, very good running back. And now without Herbert in there, he has seen much more usage in the passing game, scored 4 touchdowns in the last 4 games. He is more solid than people are going to want to admit against a Buffalo team that struggles to tackle. And I don't think people are going to be on him at 6,500 just based on the price point and the matchup because they are underdogs. So if he's under 10% this week, which would shock me if he's under 10%, I think the field is sharper than that, but maybe they aren't. We'll monitor that as the week goes along. Now, my secondary stack. In games that he started and finished, Amon-Ra St. Brown has been an absolute stud. His floor in games that he starts and finishes is essentially what we've seen the last 2 weeks against the Jets and against Minnesota. Okay, 13, 15 points. That's what you're going to get in games that he starts and finishes, whether they're at home or on the road. This is with this usage. This is where you're going to see him. But we know his ceiling is up in here. He has seen increased usage in the red zone. 7,800 we can afford. I want to get a bring back player, and it's going to have to be from that game as well. DJ Moore at 5,500. 2 of the last 3 games on 6 only targets. Now, Sam Darnold does not look terrible, but everybody has looked better against the Detroit Lions and that defense. The Lions have been pretty respectable against the run for like the last 2 months, but everything that they give up is through the air. Even Zach Wilson had a couple of good passes against them. Even Zach Wilson, imagine giving up passing yards and completions. Zach Wilson can't even. 23 points against Denver, strong defense. Pittsburgh, 18.3 points against them. He did not have a good game against Seattle. Seattle schemed to completely take him out and make them beat them elsewhere. I don't think Detroit has the facilities, mate, to make that a reality. So give me 5,500 on DJ Moore as I need a little bit of salary relief in that point. Also, let's lean all the way into the road golf and go with the Panthers defense at 2,300. That defense has actually been pretty good, producing a lot of sacks along the defensive line. And if they miss, they're not going to miss by all that much. And it gives us upside because defense is so very random, leaving us with 3,600. And all of the attention in this Dallas game offensively is going to go towards stopping those 2 amazing running backs, Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott, and then CeeDee Lamb as well. And Schultz is a problem for teams to have to stop. Now, Philly's defense is extremely good, but we need 3,600. Noah Brown saw 9 targets last week, 6 targets the week before. He is in this 3,600 range. Can he flop? Most definitely. I'm not expecting 2 touchdowns. That's not the play here. The play here is on volume. 15 targets the last 2 weeks for 3,600, playing the amount of snaps and running the amount of routes that he is. Noah Brown certainly is in play this week and not going to catch a tough matchup specifically for him, which is going to go towards CeeDee Lamb when he is snapping on the outside. And on the other side, Michael Gallup as well, catching Bradbury and catching Slay. They're going to move Noah Brown around, and they found ways, especially on 3rd down and inside the red zone, to get him activated because he's got the best matchup when they get into those zones. So like, I like this at 3,600. Geno Smith, McKinnon, Henry, Metcalf, Amon-Ra St. Brown, DJ Moore, Noah Fant, Noah Brown, the Noah correlation here, and the Panthers defense. Thank you guys for watching. Look out for another video right there.
He's a legend.